Welcome everybody to the Tis the Season MHealthy webinar series. I'm John Soniga, Stress Manager here at MHealthy, along with Erica Owen, a dietitian here. We're going to wait a second so people are coming into the webinar, and then we'll start. We're going to go ahead and start. So I'm sitting here in Erica's office by the heater, and you'll notice the lovely screen there. It has a lot of snow out. We had frost this morning. And so we're going to talk a little bit about what the season is to start out for and kick it off here. We have a number of webinars coming up. So what is the season? 'Tis the season to give holiday greetings. We're talking about basically November through January, which ends up being 2 to 3 months. So it's a lengthy period of time. And it's a time of celebrations and ceremony. I think Diwali is underway right now, the Festival of Lights, and we have Thanksgiving coming up, winter solstice, Hanukkah, Christmas, of course, Kwanzaa, Boxing Day, New Year's Day, Feast of the Epiphany, Eastern Orthodox Christmas, and Sankranti. And there are other activities throughout this season. Now, if you look at that slide, you see candles. A lot of these festivals, including Diwali, is the Festival of Lights. Hanukkah, we light lights. There's a lot of candles and things lit during this period for a number of reasons. But I like you to focus on the flame, because one of the things we want you to do is take a moment and pause and reflect. We would like you to slow down a little bit through this season and enjoy. So, good tidings. I want you to take a moment and think. The holidays are a time for what? What comes to mind? I mean, after this webinar is over, you can take a moment and think. So some of the things that come to mind are comfort and joy. The song goes with good tidings. Family and friends. There's a picture of a family there getting together. They're good things. Being hectic and busy also come to mind. That you've got to make your list. You've got to plan for your meals. There's the stress of making lists. And also stress and worry. We worry that things go well. We worry about doing the right things. I know Black Friday's coming up as well. A lot of people are making shopping plans. Somebody asked me that today. Have I made my plans? And I have not. So there's both good and bad during the holiday season. We want you to acknowledge both the pressures and the pleasures of the season. We don't deny that there are both. We want you to think and take account of them. So when I think of the holidays, the first word that comes to mind for me is expectations. Expectations and intentions. Think again for a moment. What are your hopes for the holiday season? Take a minute. Perhaps after this is over, you can write them down. What are we really expecting? What are we hoping for? Are you hoping to survive this gauntlet of a season of parties and holidays and plans and friends and family and work as well? Are you hoping to flourish? It's going to go wonderfully. I'm going to have one of my best seasons ever. Are you hoping to renew yourself? Sometimes we're able to pause and reflect and to find that sense of peace? Are you hoping to be healthy, to maintain your health behaviors, to come up with new health behaviors? What are you hoping for? So this webinar series, we would like you during the holiday season, we hope to help you make positive, healthy, and intentional choices. So we want you to be intentional, to plan. We're starting here in early November, and we're thinking about all the things that are coming up. We want you to be intentional. We want you to plan to be happy and healthy during the coming months. I want you to look forward and be optimistic. And one of the first things coming up is Thanksgiving. There's a lot of food during all those celebrations and a lot of food to be had during the coming 2 to 3 months. I'm going to turn it over to our dietitian, Erica, here to talk a little bit about planning for Thanksgiving as one of the first things we do during this series.
Hello and good afternoon, everyone. I see that we actually had a question coming in here, and I just want to mention that you're definitely free to ask questions throughout, but sometimes it's a lot easier in webinar format to answer your questions at the end. So I just want to let you know that I will be with you at the end of the session to answer any of those outstanding questions. So as John mentioned, we're going to be preparing for Thanksgiving meals. And I guess you want to think about, it might be 1 meal, that might be 2 meals, that might be 4 meals. It might be 1 day, it might be 2 days. So it's not just one item in and of itself. You might have to think a little further ahead of how you can piece all of those together and be helpful throughout maybe many different occasions. Making traditional recipes more healthful is one way you can do that. We're going to talk about a couple different ways to make some of those recipes more healthful, as well as watching maybe some portion sizes throughout this time period. But we want to continue to look forward to the season. In no way am I saying to look down on this at all. There are many things that you can do to make this very delightful and enjoyable for your family and friends. So one of the first tools I wanted to share with you today was the MyPlate. And this MyPlate is a graphic that you can use to help you with your portion control and looking at what food should I have more of, which food should I have less of. And when you go out to many different meals throughout this holiday season, you have lots of points to make the best choice. We don't always make the best choice, and no one is ever expected to make the best choice. But how many times can you make a better choice than not? One of the things we want to think about is increasing our fruits and vegetables. As you can see on this plate, we have half of the plate as fruits and vegetables. So that one's, I guess we probably should use a different color highlighter. But on the fruits and vegetables, we're noticing that half of the plate is what's suggested of being fruits and vegetables because we do tend to eat too little of those. So you can fill them up in your plate like this, or you can use them as snacks throughout the day because maybe your meals won't be filled with the fruits and vegetables. One of the other things that you don't notice on this plate are fats and sugars. And that's because we do tend to overeat those foods as a society, and especially during the holiday season. There are a lot more of those things around, so we do just tend to have more. So you want to be very mindful of how often you're eating those sorts of foods and how much of those foods that you're eating. It is also one of the joys of the season is enjoying the different maybe punches and desserts that go along with family and friends and social gatherings, but you do want to be mindful of how much you're taking in. Let's see if I can. So as I mentioned, we would like to talk about some of the ways that maybe you can make some of your recipes a little more healthful, because I think in this next week, maybe even this weekend, you'll be planning and maybe even preparing some of your dishes for Thanksgiving anyway, because I actually heard this on the radio this morning that you can make a lot of your foods over this weekend and then maybe make them like halfway and then bake them off at the end on Thursday morning. So you do want to maybe think about these things as you go forward. Let's see. Here are some substitutions that are pretty common, and you can find a lot of these things online as well as maybe a little more explanation for what we're talking about here today. So I might suggest something you're like, I wonder how that works. You may want to go on to one of the recipes, maybe one of the websites, maybe like allrecipes.com, because they have a lot more explanation of exactly what the substitutions are and for a lot more items than what I've presented here today. One of the things you can use, I had applesauces on here, and applesauce can be used for a lot of the light baked goods like white cakes and that sort of thing. And prunes, pureed prunes can be used in a lot of the chocolate items. I know it sounds a little odd, but it does work. You know, just try it out in a small batch of something. You might be surprised with what you find out. Cooking spray can be used to grease pans. You know, probably you may have used that one. We'll put it that way. You could also take maybe a little bit of butter, less than you would use, or put a little bit of oil in the pan and then actually spread it with a paper towel or something like that, so you're not using quite as much in the pan. There we go. You can always decrease the fat in the recipe by about 1/3 without noticing too much of a difference in the product. And that goes along the same thing with the egg whites and egg substitutes. And this says that we're giving you the actual substitution out so you can make that. A lot of people will say there's a difference in the end product of a baked good in the texture of it by using egg white or a whole egg. Now, I think light cream cheeses are definitely something that you can switch out for regular, because a lot of times you're putting lots of different spices, herbs, flavors in there, and you don't really notice the taste of the cream cheese or something like that. You're noticing more of the texture and the spreadability. So you can take the fat content down a little bit. And then we mentioned Splenda here, but it could be any one of the artificial sweeteners in place of sugar. They all do have different measures out than this do, though. So Splenda is a nice one because you have 1 cup to 1 cup. Isn't that a pretty picture? Anyway, another way to lighten up some of your traditional favorites are things like green bean casseroles. Anybody have that one? Green bean casseroles, traditionally may have cream, some fried onions. You could try making them a little different way. Tell your family that, hey, we're just trying something else. I'm helping out and keep your healthful ways going, or I'm just trying to kick off my new year a little early. So some fresh green beans sauteed in a little heart-healthy olive oil, or even steam it and then put some of the spices on afterwards. Yams or sweet potatoes. Everybody calls it something different. Technically, they're about the same. I think you could use either word and you'd be okay. But instead of using the marshmallows and that added sugar component, maybe having some apple juice, which is a naturally occurring sugar, and some cinnamon to spice it up would be a little more healthful as well. We talked about using skim or 1% milk instead of whole milk, and here's an example of that. And this is interesting. I actually did this last night, Parmesan cheese on my potatoes. It was pretty darn good. So you could try that one out instead of using that really, really rich butter and whole milk, using like a dry cheese like a Parmesan with less fat. And then salads. So when we talked about at the beginning was that Choose My Plate had lots of vegetables on there, right? So you can bulk up your meal with salads or a vegetable of some sort. It is a way to have the same volume of food, have a full plate of food, because that's just, everybody likes a full plate of food, but in a lot lower calorie, lower fat, lower sugar way. And then making your own salad dressing. So it's not a cream base. It doesn't maybe have all the preservatives in it. Maybe it doesn't have all the sodium in it. Trying some new flavors out. It can be fun. I know it sounds a little ridiculous, but it can be fun to find new recipes and try them out and see what the family thinks. They might hate it. Have an extra extra bottle of another dressing in the refrigerator just in case. You know, as John said, don't sweat. Things are going to go the way they're going to go.
That's right.
So just let it be. Take the stress off. Everything will be okay.
Lighten up.
Lighten up. There you go. Lighten up. This one is not quite talking about that, John, but this one is talking about the food itself. Turkey, I'm actually put all these out here. Turkey can be helpful, but it also can be not quite so helpful. So looking at the differences and what by just using a different cut of the meat, even taking the skin off of dark turkey, that saves you 4.5 grams of fat, and that's for every 3 to 4 ounces. So it really is a small change for a really large benefit that you might be getting out of that. And then you know what? Have the turkey breast without skin, and then just have a small piece of turkey skin if you need to have it. You can indulge in moderation.
Then you can have dessert later.
Oh, and dessert later. Right.
Choose. Be intentional.
Be intentional, yes. Gravy, just add it. I have done this. Like when you take soup with it. You might always do a soup. You take soup and you put it in the refrigerator, and like the next day you take the soup out of the refrigerator, and you've got a hardened layer on the top. That is the saturated fat that has now risen to the top. So if you are going to make your gravy, you can make it the day before even, and put it in the refrigerator, and then take that fat off, and you've gotten rid of a lot of the saturated fat that way. Now bread. Bread, we all know that we can overindulge in bread, and sometimes you don't notice that until you're almost to the end of your meal. Like, oh man, I can't fit any more of this food in, and you're like, oh, but I had like 3 pieces of bread. So you can think about taking less bread, not having the bread, or cutting the bread into smaller pieces, because you might like there might be 3 different jams on the table that you want to have, and you want to have 3 different pieces of bread to go with it. But taking smaller pieces will start you off on a more balanced foot. I was flying through there. I was flying through here because I was not looking at the time and thinking that I was not flying through here. So we also wanted to talk about was taking care of you and yours. That really is what this entire series is about. And I'm actually going to have John chime in here a little bit with some of these take-home points and things that we can be thinking about, especially in the next week before we see you or you hear us again.
Well, one of the first take-home points is be optimistic. Easier said than done. This goes along with be intentional. We want to assume that things are going well, and if you plan, that is more likely.
One of the ways that we talked about to be intentional is to think of the MyPlate graphic when you are making your meals. How are you putting the food on your plate? What portions are you using? What types of foods are you choosing? And as John had said, if you make the choice to have less bread, maybe you can have the dessert later on, making the choices.
And I'm not the dietitian here, so I always struggle with portion size. And the MyPlate is helpful, that I just remind myself, half the plate, fruit and vegetables, which is a beautiful color. So I say enjoy the colors. And if I tell myself just to fill half that plate, then I don't worry about what goes on the other half. I just make sure that I have my vegetables and my fruit taking up half of my plate. And it's very helpful to me who struggles with portion size.
And that's a very good point. And one of the things I mentioned was having a full plate, and people like a full plate. There's a lot of research stating that we eat based on how much food we have on the plate. So sometimes people even want to have a smaller plate. If you really are thinking, I really want to be mindful of my portions, if that's one of your goals this season, you can think about actually having a smaller plate. Or, you're going to have, at Thanksgiving time, I always have 2 plates. Well, you can think about having 2 smaller plates instead of 2 traditional size plates, because then you would be taking in less food overall. And this really is a big one throughout the year as well as this time, is limiting the added sugars and the saturated fats. I don't know who all out there might make some baked goods, may have some extra candy left over from Halloween. There are a lot of extras that tend to be at work, out when we're out eating, at our friends' homes, at home in our pantries, because you're at the grocery store and wow, it looks great, and now it's in your pantry for the next week, and you've got to think about that. So limiting them, I don't say don't have them, but limiting them and thinking about them, and back to what John said of just being very, very intentional about your choices.
Right. I try to savor those pleasurable things. Back to the season, remind yourself that the season is a time to slow down and be mindful. Light that candle, enjoy that special food, and savor it.
Okay, so I do see that we have about 6 questions here, so we are going to move on to answering those. I also wanted to, while we're looking at the questions, just remind you of some of the other seminars and things that are going on around. Tomorrow actually is the Great American Smokeout, and the Being Tobacco Free for a Day webinar will also be occurring at noon tomorrow. At registration's on our website as well, along with next week's event of parties and events. And then the 28th being active into the new year, the 5th being indulgent without overdoing it, the 12th being generous this season, and the 19th being content this season. So we hope that you can tune into any of these or all of these as your schedules permit. So like I said, I'm going to check out some questions here, and I'm going to actually just read the questions and answer them verbally. Someone said, can you get pureed prunes in the grocery store, or do you put prunes in the food processor to puree them? Well, I guess you could do both. You can go to, actually, the baby food aisle is the best place to get pureed prunes. And also you could look at in the baking aisles themselves, they have them. Another question is, do the gravy separators on the market work as well as the refrigerator method? Well, yeah, I think that the gravy separators are a good idea, especially in the moment, because a lot of people aren't going to make their gravy beforehand and put them in the refrigerator and then defat it. A lot of times you're making it at the same time on Thanksgiving, or you're actually making it in a super hurry on the way to the table. The more you let your gravy cool, the more fat you will be able to get off of them, though. How about, do you have any ideas for hors d'oeuvres or things that I can have available for my guests to eat while they're waiting for the meal or watching the football game? There are lots of ideas, and we have lots of recipes on our website, as well as I can email you a few of those ideas on top of that. Yeah.
That's a good question. I'll be watching the football game, and that's when I do a lot of eating, so
yep.
I'll have to plan.
Okay, well, we'll definitely get some of those, get a few recipes out to people within the next, I would say by tomorrow at this time, we should get you some recipes as well. Would you count mashed potatoes as part of the vegetable portion or carbs and grain? The answer is yes. It's both. It is a starchy vegetable. On that MyPlate, it is a grain, and the reason is that it has calories most similar to a piece of bread or a standard grain product. So if you're looking at making half of your plate vegetables, they are talking about the non-starchy vegetables.
So mashed potatoes and stuffing don't count for my vegetables.
Yes,
Okay.
you got that right.
Got that right.
Yeah,
Good.
yeah, just like corn. So a lot of people might have corn and potatoes and peas and those actually count as a grain. So you can see how people overdo grains, especially at traditional holidays, because a lot of those things are very grain and carb heavy. Another one is, can you tell me what a saturated fat is? What foods have saturated fat? I keep hearing that olive oil is okay. Saturated fat is most typically come from animal products and are most typically in your dairy and then your meat. So your beef, it's in all animals. So beef, pork, the chicken. That's the difference between the dark turkey and the white turkey. It's heavier in fat than the saturated fat. And the reason that olive oil is healthier than a saturated fat is olive oil does not contain the type of fats that clog your arteries, and saturated fats do tend to work towards clogging your arteries. So you want to look at decreasing the saturated fats a little bit along the way. We have one more question here. At this time, actually, I have maybe a few. So I'm just going to keep going. What about alcohol? My family really drinks. Well, I think that alcohol is one of those things, it's just like food, you have to plan for. You have to think about them maybe in a moderate way, and plan for your tactics as well. Just like we had the MyPlate graphic for food portioning, you might want to think about what your planning tool is for your alcohol intake as well. What do you think, John?
Well, I think that's a really good question because it's acknowledging the pressures and the pleasures. And there's pressure with drinking and some stress when people imbibe a little bit too much, but there's a lot of pleasure. Sometimes people look forward to that during the meal. And I think coming up we have a section on webinar on being indulgent without overdoing it. And you do have to plan with an eye towards having the pleasure as well. So it's a very good question. You start to think about both who's drinking and dynamics and all the other things that come during the holidays, some of those pressures. So we'll talk a little bit about those.
Great, thank you. Another question that came in was, I don't care so much for the taste of olive oil. Which is the next best oil to use for general cooking? Okay, so a couple of things you might want to think about. If you use extra light olive oil, it has an extra light taste. So there isn't as much taste as your standard extra virgin olive oil. So that's one way you might want to think about it. The other thing is canola oil has fairly similar makeup as the olive oil does. So you can definitely switch to the canola oil with the same benefits. I think that we have gotten through our questions, and we have a minute left. I think we did a pretty good job with timing there, John.
Well, and I'm looking forward. I hope folks come back in the coming weeks, look at our schedule. Don't forget tomorrow, if you know somebody who smokes, it's a Great American Smokeout Day. It's a very important day. Sometimes it's a great time to quit, to renew yourself during the holiday season where you might have support. So give a gift to yourself, as it says, and tune into that one, please.
Well, thank you all for attending today. And like I said, I hope that we have a chance to speak with you again. Have a wonderful day.